Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day. So far on day 2 of the Major 2 qualifiers has now concluded. A massive day for some of these teams. A lot of the teams having to prove they could bounce back from a pretty difficult last couple of weeks. Some teams managed it, others certainly did not. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you were new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. Before we get into stuff, wanted to say this real quick from Spart. Pretty ridiculous clutch on the CS right here. The pistol out of control. We saw some crazy pistol things happening actually with Paul X here in the second series we are going to discuss in this video. But yeah, lots to talk really about Los Angeles Guerrillas. The team looks pretty shambolic. What are they going to do? Are they going to bring in a guy like Spart from the substitute bench? Is Gunless going to go? Like, is Slasher going to go? Is Gunless going to be main AR? Like, what's going to happen here? Like, well, still certainly some possibilities on the table. Seems like, at least as of today's performance, they may be turning a corner to some degree. One match against Paris might not necessarily give you all that indication, right? That can, if anything, be a bit of a problem, right? Sometimes you have a decent series and it kind of delays the inevitable slightly further. Not sure that's necessarily going to be the case now. They looked pretty good today, to be honest. A lot of it came from Slasher playing much better in this series. Like, honestly, the comms that Paris were giving in their listenings were pretty, like, just terrible, to be honest. I don't know what was going on there. Like, you'd have thought there'd have been some more energy with this change they made, but, you know, still, it is what it is. Slasher finally has a phenomenal series. It's been a long time coming. I'm sure he's been looking himself in the mirror, right, and thinking, okay, you know, who are you, right? Like, are you here to compete? Are you here to try and win championships? Like, what is this 0.59 business on land the other week? Like, he turns it around this series. Game 1 was just the Slasher side, to be honest. He was pretty much double positive. Game 2 continued in a pretty similar vein, but it was Huke with some nice plays towards the end. And honestly, I think that when I saw Paris play this the other day, I think they won this against Seattle or something. Like, it was just terrible, the plays on both sides. Honestly, I wasn't really impressed by Paris's victory, even though I did predict them to win today against LAG. Like, when they beat Seattle, it really wasn't impressive. Both teams are playing pretty terribly, and all LAG really needed to do was play some decent fundamental COD and some of their star players to actually turn up, and they should be better than Paris. But yeah, I wasn't really impressed again at what Paris brought to the party here. Like, especially, I mean, Jimbo's aggression was looking pretty good at times, but yeah, the search and destroy did not go their way. The final map as well goes to LAG, even though they're pretty terrible at control so far. So Paris get 3-0'd by LAG. Very nice bounce back series from them. Slasher has a 1.45, Gunless with a 1.38. The SMGs carrying their weight, but yeah, Asim was definitely having his moments again. So we'll see what happens with this team. Straight away looks pretty terrible for Paris, can't lie. Like, I mean, yeah, still some people were putting them way up the power rankings after just one victory against a pretty dysfunctional Seattle squad. And well, here we are, Los Angeles Guerrillas getting a very comfortable victory against them. So not really sure what this says, to be honest. Does it say that Paris need more time with this new roster? LAG, I guess, should be beating this team on paper. When Slasher turns up, this team does seem like a threat, but can they still do it against another squad? Asim says, GG's Paris, starting to get back on our groove, right? So that's kind of the key thing, I suppose, that he's been feeling the last few days. But well, as Slasher says, GG's Paris 130, still got to be better. He knows there's a lot of work to do with this roster, but well, they obviously figured that out after the major. If this team doesn't work out in the next couple of weeks, changes certainly will happen after the stage 2 major, but maybe they can turn things around. The second series was LA Thieves, the other Los Angeles team playing up against London. Now, this was a pretty crazy series to me just going in, because I thought, okay, can London get something done here with Paul X as a sub? Like, what's the S&D going to look like really for the London side? I felt like still Los Angeles Thieves should have an advantage here, right? They shouldn't really be losing to a team with London with a substitute in the roster with Paul X only 2 days of practice, especially when the first map is Gavutu. Now, I mean, look, clearly London decided to chal them on Gavutu. They were trying to figure out what Los Angeles Thieves do. That's really the problem with where LA Thieves were getting their wins. They were winning like every series 3-1. Their search was pretty awful, but you know, their hard points were so good. They're winning pretty much all of them at the start of the year. Therefore, when they go into the major, they basically lose all their searches, and they go out of the tournament top 6 despite playing some pretty tough opposition. Get 2-3 fights where Ultra in winners round 1, for example, and went out of the tournament to FaZe after getting reverse swept. Pretty tragic stuff from them. But still, their hard point has been so good, but eventually it's going to drop off. You're not going to retain like 80% hard point win rates for the entire year. It's more than likely going to drop down to 60, 65, 70, something along those lines. When you lose game 1, you've got to be able to bounce back in the series. And of course, every single team in the world right now has been looking at Los Angeles Thieves Gavutu, trying to figure out what to do on it. And London are already very good at this map. I mean, Paul X is just one of the perfect players to put in this role because he's so great with an AR. This game 1 was honestly pretty comfortable for London, right? It was very reminiscent actually of the game 4 between FaZe and Los Angeles Thieves when they played and knocked LA Thieves out of the tournament at the major 1. Because I mean, yeah, it was Nasty going off on the main stage. It's great to see really the way London work because Nasty has not been the one dropping crazy numbers so far. But I mean, if it's not Zero and it's not Afro, it's going to be Nasty, right? He's going to step up to the plate. Paul X also certainly had his moment today. The search and destroy, he really came alive on Berlin. This game too as well, like don't gel. Nasty on Gavutu apparently. 1.6 KD, 32 and 20. He was out of control. The rest of the boys got to sit back and relax, to be honest. And then it was Paul X on the Berlin. I believe he went 11 in 5 to win this one pretty comfortably. So again, like interesting vetoes, to be honest, because London are pretty good at Berlin search and destroy. Surprised LA Thieves took it there, to be be perfectly honest. But still, the search and destroy woes continue for LA Thieves, and when you go down 2-0, it's very tough to bounce back, especially going into a Gavutu control when London are already so good. So all these maps that were played, I thought were pretty good for London, to be honest. Yes, they should have been good for Thieves as well, but again, London are just such a solid team. This 3-piece and Porlex was disgusting. Like, he was definitely saying his resume. I saw a tweet yesterday that said, like, look, he's got his final chance to prove he deserves to be in the league. He really came to play this series. Like, LA Thieves did not stand a chance. If your substitute player is coming in and dropping numbers, like, you're just having a great time on the map. He played with this organization last year. They're familiar with him as a player. But, I mean, yeah, what a statement from Porlex and from London this series. But honestly, like, well, a real bad sign for Los Angeles Thieves. They come in here, lose both respawns and the search to a team with a substitute. Like, that should not be happening. Yes, it's London. Yes, they're arguably a top 3 team in the game right now. Pretty undisputed, to be honest. And Thieves should be there or thereabouts, though. They should at least be winning a map. Not a good sign at all. Like, I mean, yeah, the star players really in this series kind of turned down. We saw Envoy and Octane a decent series. Kenny wasn't really doing all that much. Drazah had a bit of a shocker, actually, as well. And Zero just got to sit back and relax. I mean, the rest of the boys, including the sub in Porlex, really came to play. So, lots of storylines really coming out as a result of this one. Firstly, Porlex, wow, what a player. We've missed this guy in the league. He was a fantastic asset last season to London. Big surprise to some people, he didn't get a shot once again this year. But, I mean, certainly people are going to keep their eye on this guy. There's been some talk already about the fact that, okay, New York, if they're going to consider to make a change, put Crim on the main AR, drop Clayster, get a new substitute in instead of Neptune, like a new submachine gun player. Porlex could be the perfect flex to finish out that team. He was phenomenal the 2 times he subbed in here for London. But as he says, that was my last game. So it does seem like Gizmo will be back for next week. But yeah, I mean, honestly, the team looked fantastic even with Paul in the squad. This other was crazy from Dominate. Accumulated more points towards the season standings already in the first 6 weeks than they did the entirety of last year. So, well, that just shows where London are heading the trajectory of this team right now. Of course, the other side of the coin, what are we going to do about Los Angeles Thieves? Is J-Cat weighing up some roster change opportunities? There's not really that many options. There's Pentagram there on the bench. I mean, Porlex, of course, is out there as well if they wanted to make that sort of move. Unlikely to happen, though. Like, it's difficult to say what you even do with this squad if you're trying to improve it. Of course, the guy going into the year that seemed the most replaceable was Drazah. I still think he's a great player. This series, he has a bit of a shocker, though. Here, well, basically, as he said, couldn't get a kill. Lost 3-0 in this one. The final series stats look something like the following. Afro and Zero not having to do all that much today. Nasty with a 1.38, Porlex with a 1.12, and Drazah with a 0.65, Kenny with a 0.86. So, really nothing doing on the other side of the equation for the Los Angeles Thieves, guys. Many questions they are going to have to answer, because getting 3-0'd by a team with a substitute is no doubt embarrassing, especially when you're, well, potentially trying to compete for championships against some of these guys. They also don't have the easiest bracket, I'm pretty sure, this stage, so not a great loss to start them off. Another team you've got to start keeping your eyes on, right, for the potential roster mania craziness that could come off after Major 1. Let's talk then, before we discuss the FaZe series, about the attached role change that went down here on the Minnesota Rokkr versus Toronto Ultra. Didn't really seem to work out all that well for them, right? Attached goes on to the main AR, Priestahh goes on to the SMG, but game 1 goes actually a pretty big comeback, I believe, in favour of Ultra. They managed to take the game 1 hardpoint pretty comfortably in the end, and well, as soon as, well, Minnesota losing game 1 hardpoints again, this is the way they do it. But yeah, game 2, they got 5-0 on the Tuscan and almost get full sailed. Like, these guys, I believe this is the team that Chicago Huntsman full sails when Envoy got that crazy ninja defuse on, what was it, Simp search and destroy back in Modern Warfare. Of course, they pulled off the crazy kind of full sail 4-0 to 5-4 comeback last year against the Ultra, but Ultra almost do it to them here. They bring it back from 5-0 to 5-5, and we've seen a few of these already this year, like at least in a similar ballback, 5-1 to 5-5, crazy comebacks in Surge. But in the end, it's MajorManiak who closes it out. It was actually a 3 versus 4 in favour of Toronto Ultra, but I think Attach gets some nice little 2-beats in the back, and in the end, they managed to avoid it happening. But I mean, look, in fairness to Ultra, they probably thought, wow, that was so far gone. We still almost won the map. Like, let's take the confidence into the next 2. And the respawns, again, did not look particularly good at all on the side of Minnesota Rokkr. Like, yeah, the changes certainly not immediately worked out for them. And that's kind of the question to be answered, is like, okay, well, Ultra were terrible at their hardpoints at the Major. They come in here and win 2 hardpoints in a series. Like, I mean, yeah, not a good sign that this initial role change is going to work. They might need to do something more drastic as time progresses. These are the final series stats as well. Standy with a solid 1. KD's relatively even all across the board, but Insight had some crazy impact in that series in addition to that 1v3 that we just looked at. Well, then we've got to talk about this final series today, because, wow, I was not expecting this to be anywhere near as interesting as it was, let alone now the result at the end of things. But wow, Seattle Surge have been struggling so much as the late. They come in against the grand finalists in Atlanta FaZe, but for some reason, Seattle Surge just bring another level when they play FaZe every single time. They beat them last year in that crazy moment when Classic was on the team. The spirit of Nicky D just seems to be undefeated, right? They brought him in as a sub last week as well, and it seems like all he needs to be is on the sub bench, right? Who knows who was subbing in for one of these players behind the scenes on one of these controllers, because I mean, wow, crazy series. We've got to dive into these games, because game 1 really looked like a, well, business as usual for FaZe. They went to a barrage. They have not lost this map yet so far this year. I believe they're 6-0. Just so hard to stop on this one. The slaying as well just looked so good for them. Look at this. 34, 31, 31, 32. This is exactly what you want to see of Crowder, right? Like, pretty much everyone contributing. Cellium at a 1.5. Like, yeah, pretty much business usual for FaZe, guys. Simp goes 22 and 35. This is the map where he was often dominating at the start of the year. Seems like we're going to get a very similar series. But Seattle bounced back in the game 2. A crazy game 2, actually. It looked like FaZe probably had the advantage here for a time. Goes to round 11. And, okay, Prid wins a nice little 1v1 to finish out this game. And, you know, as it closes down, you think, okay, hang on a second here. Maybe Seattle can make something in this series. They at least won a map in this one. Like, FaZe have been getting counter-strategies a fair bit, actually, on this Tuscan Search and Destroy as of late. But you're thinking, okay, probably FaZe are going to get the job done. And then, the way the round 1 of the Control went, where FaZe were really struggling to get a kill on their own defense, they do end up winning it. Just actually a crazy stat before we get into the Control here from COD Complex, that FaZe got first blood in 10 of the 11 rounds that game, and still they managed to lose the map, right, which is pretty crazy. There's very rarely do FaZe play that undisciplined, you could argue, right, getting almost all the first bloods, still not winning the game. That's incredibly rare, especially for a team like FaZe. And then this Control, right, so basically what happened here is FaZe were up 1-0. They, I mean, it was defense central once again, you know, who's surprised? But Seattle gave it a really good go on their offenses. This is a crazy spot actually from Cellium. He just pulls it out the bag. Like, this guy's got so much stuff up his sleeve, it seems that he's finding all the time. Like, this is a ridiculous spot. Still, doesn't really help them out too much in this map. The final round, this is a screenshot I took, is ridiculous. Like, it was honestly very reminiscent of what FaZe had on the other side of things up against OpTic at the Major. They were down 8-3 in terms of life count. Predator just popped a 3-piece, but, I mean, it collapses for Seattle Surge. Pretty disastrous choke out to them, to be honest. There's 23 seconds on the clock. You feel like they've got to close this one out. Like, you've got all the lads all over the shop. There's no way possibly FaZe can get back into this. Pred dies, accuracy gets got out of the hill, and all of a sudden they bring this back and win this round 5. So it feels like, okay, wow, FaZe, how do they win that one? They somehow got over the danger. They're going to close this series out. That is exactly not what happened. I was very impressed, honestly, at the way that Seattle Surge were able to kind of control their emotions here and get back in business, because, you know, you wouldn't put it past these guys after losing a crazy round like this, 8-3, down to 4v3, and then it completely collapses for the Seattle Surge guys to just kind of chalk up the series. But the mentality was really strong for them. They go into a Berlin hardpoint, and they win this one very comfortably. From second one, really, of this game, it felt like FaZe were on the back foot. The rotations were really sloppy for them. Seattle Surge were dominant. Mack went like 29 in 14 for you know, crazy statistical performance, and then took it all the way to a game 5 back on Berlin. As soon as I saw this is on Berlin, I was like, wow, this is really good for Seattle Surge, because they've taken it to game 5. Accuracy is definitely loving life right now and feeling like he's going to get one over on the FaZe boys once again, as he did at the kickoff. And it's a map where they've been pretty damn good so far this year, and an absolutely phenomenal performance from the Surge in this game 5. I mean, this honestly was not particularly close. Felt somewhat reminiscent, to be perfectly honest, of what happened to FaZe when they lost in that reverse sweep fashion to the OpTic guys right at the Major. When it goes to a game 5, when they're on the back foot, they've just lost the game 4. They don't really seem to be playing their game. Like, I'm very discoordinated, losing so many first bloods this map actually as well. And Seattle were pretty clinical in closing out some of the rounds. FaZe had a nice couple of bounce backs here or there. They never really go down without too much of a fight usually. But yeah, 6-2. Like, that's crazy, right? The last 2 game 5s, I'm pretty sure FaZe have played now. I guess they won the one against LA Thieves, but there's been a couple of game 5 recently. They've got 6-0'd by OpTic and now 6-2'd by Seattle game 5. That's not something anyone really expected coming into this series, especially with the way Seattle looked. But they seem to turn up to a next level against this team. They played really well, honestly, all across the board. Seems like they're getting some fire back. But yeah, wow, FaZe dropping to Seattle again. These FaZe guys were so hard to beat in regular league matches last year. This is the first one they've lost of the regular qualification stage matches, which could have some massive implications down the line, because FaZe do not have the easiest bracket. They play OpTic in the final week, and now they're already 0-1. Like, yeah, definitely big questions to be answered about this FaZe team. We talked about Los Angeles Thieves a little bit earlier on. Like, FaZe have to prove they can get back into business, and credit to Seattle performing this well in this series. But yeah, wow, I'm sure plenty to discuss on this in the coming days. Very much intrigued to your perspective in the comments below. Arcitys makes it clear that right now they're just super inconsistent. The FaZe guys not anywhere near where they need to be performing consistently, and I'm sure we'll discuss this more tomorrow. But these were the final series stats just to close out the video. Cellium, Mack, great performances from them on their own respective teams. Everyone else negative, but yeah, the slaying was really tight across the board. Came down to clutch factor, and that is where Seattle Surge of all teams got the job done. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit a like button, tell us the YouTube god this is a good video. I just like you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you as always, take care, and I will see you next time.